Hi, and welcome back to Learn How to Write Online. Today we're going to talk about readability and editing your work. Now, all of this is going to help you build your reputation and make sure that people like what you are writing and are able to read it and want to read all of it. Okay, we talked a little bit about readability earlier when we were talking about SEO, but this is going to cover more of the editing process, all right, after you've written it. And some of this can be applied to as you're writing it. Okay, so let's cover readability first. First of all, know who your audience is, all right? Your client many times will tell you that what you're writing is for such and such a site. Maybe it's for a site for the elderly. Maybe it's for a kid's site. Maybe it's for a site for women. Okay, know who the audience is and speak to them as though you're speaking to that particular audience. So if you're writing to a younger audience, watch out for your big words. Be careful about how you use words that your audience might not understand. Okay? You also want to break up your articles into headings and subheadings and paragraph breaks. All that makes it more readable, makes it more visually appealing. And we talked about this already, but it's really important to reiterate it and remember that this doesn't just apply to SEO and to making sure your content ranks well. It also applies to how readable your content is, how enjoyable it is to read, and how likely people are to read through all of it and to have an easy time reading through it. Okay, so remember to use those paragraph breaks. Remember to break up with lists and with subheadings and all that. It can also help to bold and italicize different things. So your subheadings should probably be in bold, and then lists can be in italics, or if your subheadings have subheadings under them, those may be in italics. Okay, and that creates some visual diversity, makes your content look more appealing. Okay, so if you're writing for a particular audience, as you do your research, look at how that audience is being written to. You should be getting your research um, from high quality sources, and so you can see how they approach their audience, how they speak to their audience, the kind of language they use, the kind of tone they use, and you can kind of incorporate that into your own work, and you can make sure that you're speaking to them in the same tone, that what you're writing fits your audience. Okay, so make sure it's readable. Read through your work when you're done. This is part of the editing process. Now, when I finish an article, I will read through it twice. Okay, first I'll be mainly checking for spelling errors, for egregious grammatical errors, all right? And you'll catch most of that in your first read through, but I would suggest a second read through, because when you do that first read through, you're going to be noticing a lot of the big problems, okay? Now, how many times you go through, how much editing you have to do, depends partially on how many typos you make. I tend to write really fast and make a lot of typos, so I do need the two read-throughs, okay? Because the first read-through, I'm catching the major mistakes, the really, really bad errors, stuff that's just misspelled wrong, stuff that doesn't have the right agreement to it, okay? And all that. The second time, I probably only find 2 or 3 errors, but it's worth it to do that second read-through and catch even just one error, because your finished document, your finished article, is part of your reputation. It's part of what creates your career. And you should be able to refer to every article you do, every piece of content you do, and show it to someone as an example of your best work. Okay? You should be very proud of the work you do. You should take pride in it and make sure it is high quality every single time. And that's going to help you keep getting the same clients again and again. They're going to keep sending you work, and they're going to be very happy with the work you do. And you're going to be happy with the work you do as well. All right, so take the time to edit your work. You want to look for things like spelling errors. And if you're not sure if it's a spelling error, then use a grammar checker. Microsoft Word has a built-in grammar checker. Google Docs has a built-in grammar checker. And you can use these things as you edit your work and see what they underline in red or what they point out in blue. Not all of their suggestions and corrections will be correct. So sometimes you'll have to research some things. Sometimes you'll just have to educate yourself on the right plural to use, the right voice to use, the right word to use in certain contexts. okay? Because those are automated programs. They're not looked at by a human. So when you write in your own unique way, your own unique style, many times you will create sentences and phrases that don't make sense to the grammar checkers. And it's not possible for them to be programmed to check every single problem and to give you an accurate solution to every problem. All right, so you're going to have to catch some of those problems on your own and not just rely on the grammar checker. I would suggest using the grammar checker that's already built into whatever document program you use. And then if you don't have an education in English or in writing or a background in that and a lot of experience in that, I would suggest using a free grammar checker tool such as Grammarly. All right, let me put that here for you. Most people know this, but Grammarly is a very good resource. And you can go to Grammarly.com and download it for free, and it's going to check a lot of your grammar problems, and it'll do a better job than Microsoft Word and Google Docs do with their automatic checkers. But once again, it's not a human checking your work, so you have to read it through. You can't just accept all the changes and then expect it to be perfect. You should read through your work at least one more time after you've looked at all the changes that your grammar checker suggests, okay? At least one more time. Get a human perspective on it, because your style is unique, it is your own, and you will write things in such a way that the grammar check is sometimes going to flag as improper or sometimes won't catch just because of the way and the voice and the tone you write in, okay? So look for all that. Use the free tools. There are paid grammar checker tools which can be very good as well, but I don't think you need them. I don't think they're necessary. I think Grammarly and the built-in tools that are already in the document programs will be enough. All right? You want to edit, 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 proofread, 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 read over what you have written. Make sure you're happy with it. Make sure your client's happy with it. All right, sometimes your client will send the work back to you and say, hey, can you fix this? Can you do a quick change? You have to decide if you're going to charge extra for that. You have to decide how many edits you're going to make, how many times you're going to rewrite and go through the content before you start charging your client extra. Usually if it's a small change, I don't charge anything. If it's my mistake, I don't charge anything, okay, on top of the regular rate, okay? So you want to have your regular rate you charge for however many dollars per 1,000 words, okay? You have your standard rate there. And then on top of that, maybe you need to have an extra fee for if your client says, I need you to go back and make all these changes, but they didn't tell you to write it that way in the first place. That's someone taking advantage of you. They may not be trying to take advantage of you because they may not realize what they wanted in the first place, and then they read over what you have, and maybe they compare it to some other high quality stuff, and they see there's some discrepancies, they see they want something different, something changed, or maybe they submitted it to their boss, and their boss says you need to make these changes, and now they're wanting something different from what they told you in the first place. Sometimes I will make those changes, especially if they're just minor, and I won't charge anything extra. If it's a lot of extra work, sometimes I still won't charge extra, just because I want to build a good relationship with the client and keep things friendly, but I will say, hey, you need to be careful about telling me one thing, me doing the work, and then you coming back and telling me something different, because that's extra work for me. And I explain it to them in a friendly way and keep the communication nice and clear, so they understand my perspective and what I'm going through. And I tell them, if you keep coming back to ask me to make these changes again and again, that makes a lot of extra work for me, and I lose money doing that. So I only do this when it happens often, and there have been a couple times where a client will say, I need you to make these changes again. I need you to do this kind of thing to it, when they told me something different in the first place. So basically they're changing the terms of what they wanted for the content. They're changing the guidelines after the fact, and that's extra work for me. And when that happens a few times, I go to the client and I say, I'm not going to charge you extra this time, but in the future, if you're not clear about what you want and you have me come back and you change the guidelines and I have to rewrite extensively, I do have to charge you extra for that next time. So let's not make it happen. And you can avoid kind of the problems in the future just by doing that, just by being clear. And what you want to avoid is looking like you're just trying to squeeze money out of your client. You want to make sure that you're being very open and clear with your communication, that you're trying to resolve problems and avoid problems instead of just looking for little things to charge for and charge and charge and charge, because your clients will not like that. They will not keep giving you work if you're the kind of person who's always looking for extra things to charge for. All right? So this protects you, protects your client, and keeps the communication good. Be very clear with your standards and your guidelines and what you expect from your client. Because remember, you are ultimately the boss. You can decide what kind of work you want to do, what kind of work you don't want to do, and what kind of stuff you can put up with. All right? So if you have a troublesome client who doesn't seem to know what they want and who's always changing things, you got to be clear and upfront with them. You got to discuss where the issue is and try to resolve the problem before it becomes even worse and before it becomes a repeated problem. If you're just clear with them, like in the example I told you, where you just tell them what the issue is and that it's causing you some trouble, if you're very clear there and upfront, then you can avoid a lot of problems down the road. So just be really careful with that, and don't try to nickel and dime your clients, because they won't appreciate that. Okay? If you're having trouble in your rewriting and making things readable and your editing process and all that, what you can do a lot of times is look at other examples that people have written on the same subject. So you go to a high quality site that has the same kind of topics, the same kind of articles, and you read what they wrote, and you kind of educate yourself, and you do the research, and you see how it's being written by professional writers who have more experience than you, and then you can apply that to your own work. And that's going to really help you, especially if it's something you're struggling with. Maybe you're writing press releases as opposed to blog articles, and it's something new and different for you and kind of hard to deal with. Well, do your research, look at the examples, spend some time reading over some other examples, and then when you go and you write your own version, your own kind of press releases or whatever it might be, then you can do it well, and it can go smoothly, and you won't run into a lot of problems. So sometimes when you try something new for the first time in freelance writing, you will have to do a lot of research, you will have to do a lot of studying and just kind of educating yourself. All right, now these videos in this course are supposed to help you with a lot of that, so you don't have to spend as much time researching and studying, but you will find there are times you have to do that, especially when you're trying something new, okay? And you'll want to just proofread extra when you're trying something new. So first time you're doing press releases, first time you're doing a product review, maybe give it an extra run through, do a little extra editing, because it's different for you and it's not what you're used to, and you're more likely to make mistakes and to do things wrong that you don't catch in your first run through. So just give it an extra run through because you want it to be extra good. And when you're trying something new for the first time like that in your freelance writing, consider it an opportunity to expand your career and to kind of go and do some new things that you may enjoy more than what you've been doing. So give it that little extra effort, the little extra push to make it really shine, and you may find that it opens some doors of opportunity for you, because now your client may recommend you to someone else who has that kind of work and say, hey, this writer knows how to do this. And you don't know how your clients are talking to each other and how new potential clients are talking to your clients. You know, a lot of times they're discussing you and discussing what you can do, what are your strengths and weaknesses, what are your rates. And so when you put a lot of effort into your work and you do your very best and you have proofread and you have edited and you've made it very readable, then they're recommending you. And they're recommending you based on all these things you're doing well. Okay, so make sure whatever you do it really, really well. You edit it, you're proud of it, you're happy with it, and your client will be happy with it. All right? Be really careful about trying to do things your own way. You want to go according to how your client tells you. Even if they tell you the wrong thing, you want to be careful about correcting them and saying, no, it should be done this way, because maybe they are from a different country and so they speak the language a little differently. They have some different grammar rules, and you will want to look up those grammar rules every now and then. Let's say you are a US writer and you're writing for a UK audience or an Australian audience. You want to look at the grammar rules for that country. If you have any question, you know, check the grammar rules online. There's all sorts of online resources for that. Just do a Google search for it and see what comes up, and you can compare a few sources and get an answer. Or you can ask your client, but it's better to do the research yourself so you look knowledgeable and you look like you can handle things without going to your client every time you have a problem. Okay? And remember, if you use Microsoft Word or something like that, where you can change the language settings from Australian English to UK English to American English, it's not going to catch every single difference in those. The grammar checker, once again, it's an automated program, and yes, it's designed by people, but there are not actual people reading your documents. So you have to check it for yourself. You have to catch the problems for yourself, and don't just rely on the grammar checker to do everything for you. Okay, you're going to have to do a little research yourself. Remember that your client knows best in a lot of instances. They may not know exactly how to do things the right way, but they know what they want usually. So do things the way they tell you, even if they're not grammatically correct, even if they don't match up to all the grammar rules and all the rules of logic and how you write. Sometimes they're going to ask for things that won't create logical sentences, especially when it comes to keywords. And you may not have a way to insert that keyword phrase or that keyword in such a way that your sentence is grammatically correct. As long as the client is happy with it, I'd say just let it go. All right? You try to do your best. You try to make it shine, and then kind of flag it in your mind or flag it on your computer that this is not something you want to use as an example of your best work. You know, keep that in mind, because you do want to always do your best work, but you also want to make your client happy. And it's more important that you make your client happy than that you do work that is grammatically correct. Okay? It should always be work you're proud of, and you got to do it to the best of your ability, but your client is, at the end of the day, the one paying you. Okay? And if you've said yes to the work, and if you understand what your client wants, then just give them what they want, even if it doesn't match up with the grammar rules and what you know is the best way to do something, because your client is the boss in that area. Okay, you may be able to set your schedule, set your rates, but it's your client who decides how your content should look. And what your clients will do a lot of times is they'll take the work you did and they'll make a little bit of tweaking to it and then publish it on the site with their own corrections, their own edits in there. And you may not have any control over that. Now, if you don't like how they have changed your content and your name is for some reason attached to it, you can always ask them, take my name off it, use a pen name, do something different, okay? Because you may be concerned how that affects your name and your reputation. Now, in my experience, your name will not go on the content very often. Okay, we talked about this a little bit. A lot of times a pen name will be used. That's just the generic pen name for the site. Or in most cases, there'll be no name credited as the author of the article, especially if it's building a service site like a plumbing site or a roofing site. There won't be any author credit on those service pages. So you don't have to worry about your name being tarnished because the work isn't how you would want it to be done. But there will be instances where your client will make changes to your work, and you kind of have to look out for that, kind of know your client and see what kind of person they are and if they might be doing that and attaching your name to something that you're not very proud of, the final edit. That was kind of out of, that was kind of out of your hands and out of your control. And so it's okay for you to go and talk to them and ask them to just take your name off that, okay? But do your best work, edit, 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 proofread, 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 and make sure that you're doing the best you can on your end to make every piece of content you do really shine and a really good example of your very best work, okay?